Very good. Good afternoon, everyone. The Sacramento City Council will please come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby, Councilmember Laloe, Councilmember Harris,
Here.
Councilmember Valenzuela,
Here.
Vice Mayor Chenier,
Here.
Councilmember Guerra,
Here.
Councilmember Jennings,
Here.
Councilmember Vang,
Here.
and Mayor Steinberg.
I'm here. Good afternoon to everyone. If you could all please rise. Ask Councilmember Guerra if he could please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
All right, great. Everybody rise, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Guerra. Again, good afternoon to everyone. We have a couple of special presentations, and why don't we begin with the first one, which is Vice Mayor Chenier.
Thank you, Mayor. It's really a pleasure to be doing this today. I've been on the council for 11 years and watched our planning commission really evolve. To borrow a line from a famous advertisement, this is not your father's planning commission, I guess, or your mother's planning commission. I think they're doing a great job showing leadership and really looking for opportunities to make it both easier and more effective and more efficient to do planning and obviously ultimately to build here in Sacramento. From the city's general plan update to streamlining housing and ADUs to our ministerial review for multifamily housing and TOD ordinance with robust engagement and outreach in each of those things. The Planning Commission has really made its mark in who we want to be as a city and how to do business with the city. The division has also taken on groundbreaking work on climate and new building electrification. We'll get to the existing building electrification as well. And in 2020, during COVID, staff processed 20% more building permits than in 2019. We know how important that is when we look at arena numbers and what we have to do in housing to meet the needs here in Sacramento. More than 30% of all building permits were units in affordable to low and very low income housing households, reflecting the city's $0 rate fee for affordable housing and ministerial review process. I also want to give a special shout out to the Neighborhood Development Action Team, which involves staff from economic development, planning, and public works to address community development issues. And I know how much we're working with Lynette and her folks on Aggie Square and Stockton Boulevard.
Yeah.
So
could I interrupt for a second? You were talking at the outset about the Planning Commission. I believe you're talking about the Planning Department.
The Planning Department, yes. Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, they deserve this award. I just want to say congratulations. We're really proud of you, and just know how much we appreciate all your efforts in helping move the city forward. So, Greg, I don't know if you want to say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. In recognition of National Community Planning Month, I wanted to highlight that, as the Vice Mayor noted, the city was awarded the Planning Agency Award by the California and Central Valley chapters of the American Planning Association, and here's one of them. We're being recognized for our past and ongoing work furthering sustainable, affordable, equitable community development, and planning is critical to address our biggest challenges of today and into the future, including affordable housing, climate action, and adaptation. And with your support, our planning division has grown over the years to 53 staff and is becoming younger and increasingly diverse. The city also continues to change with new development built or approved in the central city, our commercial corridors, our light rail stations, their Sacramento State, and completing the build out of our new growth areas in the Thomas and Delta Shores. Of course, our accomplishments are being recognized primarily because of the bold leadership of all of you on the City Council. We truly appreciate the Council's willingness to support bold and innovative planning in Sacramento. And at this point, I'll ask our City Clerk to play a short video that was created for this year's statewide planning conference. Happy to note that the City of San Diego was the runner-up for the award.
Somebody's got to be number 2, right?
Sounds like bragging rights to me.
Sounds like bragging rights.
I
Exactly.
got the ocean, we got the award.
We got to own it.
I'll take the award over an ocean any day.
Thank you, Mayor.
The Excellence Award for Planning Agency is awarded to the City of Sacramento Planning Division. For more than 20 years, the Planning Division has been innovating to solve issues through key strategies, including updating the general plan every 5 years and programs to build community capacity for engagement. The city focuses on increased community empowerment, a new building electrification ordinance, streamlined housing development approval, and a cross-departmental collaborative initiative to include economic and community development in the city's historically underserved neighborhoods. The jury was impressed and noted the agency was first to introduce the users to a single-family zone, including ADUs, and a high rate of affordable housing. The agency is very progressive with innovative programs for TOD projects and with parking and single-family housing. They organized community outreach into neighborhoods, streamlined permitting, and provided leadership on single-family zoning.
Great video.
Well, really, I think that just barely scratched the surface in terms of how the cutting edge that our planning department is proceeding with together with the council, and very grateful that we've got a far-sighted and visionary team within the city that is helping us modernize our city and making it more inclusive. So thank you. Thank you very much, Greg, and congratulations to you and your entire team.
Mayor, I think Councilmember Harris and I were hoping to chime in as well.
Oh, yes, of course. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get my bearings here. Go ahead, Councilmember Valenzuela.
Mayor, I'll go first. Thank you, Katie.
Councilmember Harris, sorry. Go ahead.
That's okay, Mayor. You'll get better. The cold will pass.
Thank you.
So, I just wanted to say to Greg and the team, it's really a pleasure to work with you. You are definitely innovative and forward-thinking, very creative. I have found working with you as a council person that you are always willing to listen to concerns and think about things at a very deep level, a lot of analysis. When I ask questions, the answers that you give me are very insightful. It's really great to work with you. And I think you deserve the award, so congratulations on doing that good work. I'd just like to say, I hope you guys noticed that picture of Steve Cohn with a big black mustache in the video. It's right at the beginning. That was pretty fun. And Sean, what good is an ocean without a good planning department? You're right.
Right? I mean, I'll take the planning department over that ocean any day, and twice on a Sunday.
So Greg, congratulations to you and the whole team in the planning department. I know you work hard. You reach for ideas that are pretty strident, and look forward to working with you moving forward. Thanks, Katie, for being patient.
Of course. I just want to add my praise to the planning department. I mean, Sacramento is growing and changing so quickly. And what I have found in working with you all, even before I was a council member and since I've been a council member, is how much I appreciate your openness to new ideas, your willingness to engage and to try new things and to seek and have those hard discussions. It's really invaluable. And I think that's what really keeps us at that cutting edge. And what has made me so confident when people ask questions about the general plan or how are we going to tackle this, I say, hey, if any city city can tackle it in Sacramento. And I think you all are a really big part of that and your team. So just want to congratulate you on this well-deserved honor and look forward to keep working with you to tackle the challenges that lie ahead of us.
That's great. Is there anybody else? Councilman Guerra.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say also, Greg, congratulations. And since I first met you, back before I was on the council as neighbors in Tahoe Park, always willing to engage and talk about good planning policy. And then with the whole team over there, just amazing work. And I agree with Jay's comments. It's a definitely revolutionary new planning division. So congrats.
Okay, excellent. That's a great way to start the meeting. Let's now move to item 2, which is a presentation by Councilmember Vang.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Today, I have the distinct honor to introduce a special resolution to Dr. Robin Rodriguez for her incredible work in the Filipino and the larger Asian American and Pacific Islander community in the Sacramento region. This month is October, and it is also Filipino American History Month. It is truly a moment for us to share and reflect on the richness of Filipinos and Filipino American history and culture, but most importantly, really an opportunity for all of us as a city to learn, honor, and appreciate Filipino Americans for their historic and social contributions to our city, the country, and the world. Today, the Filipino American community is the 3rd largest Asian American group in the United States. And here in California, they are actually the 2nd largest Asian American group in California. Just right here in Sacramento County, in our city, we have over 42,000 Filipino community members playing a critical role in our city and our county. And right here in the heart of South Sacramento, District 8, we have a large Filipino community, many local businesses located on Mac Road like Seafood City. One of these pioneers is Dr. Robin Rodriguez, who is a professor at UC Davis in the Department of Asian American Studies, and she is also the founder of the Bulasan Research Center. The Bulasan Center for Filipino Study at the University of California was founded by Dr. Robin Rodriguez, and their mission is to preserve, promote the history of Filipinos in California. Most recently, the Bulasan Center, led by Dr. Rodriguez, have pioneered the way during this pandemic to ensure that the greater Sacramento region has disaggregated data and research to advance health equity in the Filipino community. My elders often share with me that too often we celebrate folks when they have already passed away, but we don't celebrate enough of our pioneers when they are still here with us. And yesterday, the Asian American Pacific Islander community, the Filipino community, celebrated one of our very own activists, Larry Itzalong. It was his birthday. And for those who don't know who Larry is, he is often the forgotten Filipino American activist behind the Delano Grape Strike. He was a labor leader and a civil rights activist who worked alongside Cesar Chavez to protect the rights of farm workers and immigrants. And today I have a distinct honor to honor someone who is still with us, who is a pioneer in doing incredible work in the Filipino and the larger API community, Dr. Robin Rodriguez. Just so honored to have her on here virtually with us to honor her, the Filipino community, and to celebrate Filipino Heritage Month. I'd like to take this moment, Mayor, to offer her the floor to say a few words, but it's just so great to have her on here to represent the Filipino community, but also for her heart and hustle and working so hard for the community to make sure that we have disaggregated data on Filipinos in the Sacramento region. Professor?
Hi, thank you so much, Councilmember Vang. On behalf of the Bulasan Center for Philippinic Studies, as well as the other organizations that are named in the resolution that are doing amazing work in the Filipino community in Sacramento, like the Filipinos Community of Sacramento and Vicinity, or FCSV, Pacific Rim Foundation, the Philippine National Day Association, or PNDA. Just really, really grateful that you are doing this work of recognizing our community. Really, really grateful to you, Councilmember Vang, for all of your heart and hustle in valuing the work that we do at the center, in really honoring the important history of Filipino Americans and their contributions. Disaggregated data is so important, especially now as we continue to struggle through this long pandemic. And it is so meaningful that you recognize how important it is that we do the work we do of collecting disaggregated data on the Asian American community. We know that there are many, many Asians in Sacramento, but we also know that they're incredibly diverse and that to best serve them, we need data that really understands the particularities of their issues so that we can ensure that policies, the kinds of policies that members of the council take on are really tailored to the community as they experience issues. I think one of the things too, I actually think it's super exciting that we're kind of on the tails of the celebration of the planning division. I'm really looking forward to continuing not just partnership with the city council on continuing to do the work of disaggregated data, but hopefully too with members of the planning division. I would love it. I think we would all love to see Sacramento join the ranks of San Francisco, LA, and even Stockton, who all have invested in creating either historic or cultural districts celebrating the Filipino community, Filipino culture, Filipino history. We'd love to be able to do that in partnership with all of you. We all know that when we create these kinds of spaces in our community, not only does it become a source of pride for those communities, but also a new source of investment, which we all need and we all want to do for the city of Sacramento. So again, thank you so much for recognizing the work that we do in our data collection, the work we do in the historical preservation, the work that all of the other community organizations have been doing. And again, hoping that this is the beginning of continued partnerships in many, many different ways. So again, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Rodriguez, for being with us today. And I hope you got the resolution that we presented to you. Oh, you have it. Oh, great. Well, it's kind of, yeah, okay. We can kind of see it, but yeah, awesome. Cool. So you got it. That's great. Well, thank you so much again, just for the great work that you're doing in the Filipino community, the larger API community. We're just so grateful for your work, and definitely we'll take you up on that. And I think the city is absolutely open, and we look forward to partnering with you and the Bullason Center to make it a reality. So again, just also happy Filipino American History Month to you and to our community in Sacramento. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Vang, for bringing this forward and recognizing a very important part of our community and our diversity. Thank you. All right, members, let us move now to the consent calendar. Are there any questions or comments on any item on the consent calendar?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Valenzuela, then Councilmember Vang.
I'd like to ask a question on item 1 before we vote on it.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment if you don't mind. Please, Councilmember Vang.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to remove item 5 from the consent calendar and to have it come back to council. I want to take this opportunity really quick just to thank staff from Public Works and Solid Waste for briefing me on this matter yesterday. While this is an already approved project before my time on council, I want to ensure that staff is able to provide the history and updates on this project and address any concerns that the community may have. So with that, I'd like to remove item 5 until we have a more thorough meeting to discuss this item and to bring it back for a formal vote after community's concerns and questions have been addressed by city staff.
No, that's appropriate. I just would like to ask the staff whether or not there is any time urgency that will help us determine how quickly it might come back.
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Ryan Moore, your Director of Public Works. So Councilmember Vang reached out to us today. It's totally reasonable that we spend some time talking to that community. This will have no impact on the construction schedule for that project.
Bingo. So you'll work it out with Councilmember Vang in terms of the timing back.
Yes.
Manager. Okay.
Yes, we will.
That's excellent. So why don't we take a motion now to, is it continue, Madam Clerk? Is that the right term, or is it, or is it to remove from the calendar?
So we'll withdraw item 5 in its entirety.
Withdraw item 5. Okay, so that's moved by Councilmember Vang. It's seconded by somebody.
Chenier.
Council Vice Mayor Chenier, let's call the roll on that item, please.
We can take that with the entire consent calendar if you'd rather.
Oh, we can, then that's fine. Then we'll make that part of the consent calendar. That's fine. Okay, are there any, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other, excuse me, items that any member would like to either take up separately or discuss separately? If not, then I'm going to ask Councilmember Valenzuela to discuss number one, and then we'll take a motion on the full consent calendar.
Thank you, Mayor. And this question is for staff. A few weeks ago, we voted to put a Medicare for All resolution on the chart, and it seems to have fallen off. So I was hoping for an update on when that could come back. It's fully drafted and ready to roll, and just hoping, I'm not sure if Consuelo or who the right person or the city manager would be to address that.
Is anybody, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. My understanding, Councilmember Venezuela, was that was being drafted in conjunction with your staff. So your understanding is it's completely drafted now and ready to go?
Yeah, it was submitted several weeks ago. So just want to make sure, and I didn't see it on the chart here for the log, so I just wanted to make sure it didn't fall off.
Okay, no, we're aware of it, and I'll follow up and make sure that it goes on the agenda.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was it for my questions, Mayor. I'm now happy to move the consent with the exception of removing item 5. Well, if that's what we need to do.
Yeah, that's right. That's the motion. That's the proper motion. Thank you.
Mayor, I have a question on one also.
Yes, go ahead, Councilman Harris. Can I get a second? I'm sorry on the motions.
I'll second.
Second by Councilman Harris. Go ahead.
So this is a question directed to Councilmember Guerra. I'd just like a little clarification on the gun storage ordinance that he asked for, because I don't really understand the condition that he's requesting.
Yes, thanks, Councilmember Harris. So this is working with our local Moms Demand Action to look at other policies that the other cities have done on safe gun storage policies for the city. This is a way to address that. Some of the issue that we've had with the number of illicit guns that are out in the community. So that just begins the research process of local ordinances on safe gun storage.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That's all, Mayor.
Good. I think, by the way, it's the way that's kind of supposed to work here as we kind of evolve with the log. You ask a question about what it means or what the intent is, and then that can inform your vote about whether or not it's coming back. So good. All right, let's call the roll.
Mayor, I have a comment after we do the roll call, please.
After the roll call. Okay, let's call the roll. Go.
Thank you. And for the record, I have no hands raised to make public comment on the consent calendar. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby is absent. Councilmember Laloe?
Aye.
Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Valenzuela?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chenier?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings?
Yes.
Councilmember Vang?
Yes.
And Mayor Steinberg?
Yes. All right, the consent calendar passes. Vice Mayor Chenier.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have this new way of doing business of trying to make sure that the city manager's office has a good idea of the priorities of the council and what they're doing. I also think that there are some potential pitfalls on this of circumventing the committee process and some other things. So what I'd like to do is ask you and the city manager to agendize an item. We need to think about, I think, the structure that we have on the committees. Do we need more? And do we want a committee process? And if so, how do we strengthen that and not circumvent it? So I'd like to have that discussion at some point, and maybe it's when we do the bylaws for next year. I'd be happy with that too.
Yeah, you are raising, I think, a point of call it creative tension here, right? This is intended, this process is intended, as you say, to give the city management a sense of where the priorities are. But then you have the issue of coming directly to the council versus the committee. We need to talk about it. So we will. Okay.
Thank you.
May I comment on that?
Yep.
So the point of bringing this forward was so that city council can decide where they want to prioritize our staff to put their energy. It's a very viable conversation to have about how to route these things. It was never intended to bring all of these items straight back to council, but also to decide how to route them. For instance, on the gun storage ordinance that Councilmember Guerra brought forward, the appropriate thing to do would be to route that to the Law and Legislation Committee and have a talk about creating a new ordinance. So all of that is, from my point of view, is up for discussion as we go over this log. We can certainly, Jay, I believe, direct them to go to a committee rather than to come back to the full council for consideration. And that's part of the process that's not clearly delineated. And I think it does definitely warrant a conversation.
Yeah, I have a number of thoughts on it, but I also don't want to break the Brown Act at this point. And I want to let people give some thought to it.
Okay, well, I'm glad you raised it, and we will make sure that we agendize it. Or should your request go on the log?
It already has.
That's a joke, sorry. Okay. Members, we've now passed the consent calendar, so let's now move to the public hearings we have tonight. Let's begin with item 12.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Sean DeCourcy, your Preservation Director. I will share my screen for item 12. I'm pleased to present the nomination of the Beehive Building at 2131 Q Street. So first, this nomination is somewhat different, and so I'm going to start with a little bit of background on the nomination. This came to us as a pre-application with a request to subdivide the parcel and develop 41 townhomes on the site. This subdivision would require demolition of the existing building. Since the building is over 50 years old, we're required by city code to evaluate for potential historic significance. We requested a historic evaluation, which the ownership team had prepared by Historic Resource Associates, a qualified preservation firm in Sacramento. The historic report came back and said that the building, while potentially significant, lacked historic integrity. As is our practice, we circulated that historic analysis to key stakeholders, including Preservation Sacramento, Sacramento Modern, and the Sacramento Art Deco Society. These groups each commented that the historic evaluation prepared by Historic Resource Associates overemphasized alterations to the building and underemphasized the historic and cultural significance of the building. At this point, Preservation Director Anderson, at the time, my predecessor, made a preliminary determination that the building was eligible for listing in the register. At this point, the ownership group was given a choice to either accept the preliminary determination or to have the building nominated for listing on the Sacramento Register so that City Council could make a final determination. They chose the latter, which brings us here tonight. At this point, Director Anderson asked his qualified preservation staff to conduct additional research and prepare an analysis determining that the building was significant and eligible for listing on the register, and initiated the landmark nomination process with a hearing by, at this point, Acting Director Bruce Monaghan, your urban design manager, who conducted a public hearing and recommended to the Preservation Commission that this building was eligible as a landmark. The Preservation Commission held a public hearing and has made a recommendation to City Council that the building is eligible for listing. Since the Preservation Commission, Preservation Sacramento has submitted a letter indicating that they have received a donation and from the developers and are withdrawing their support for the nomination. I'd like to take a moment to address, well, the project tonight is not up for debate, so it is not on your agenda. So we're not here to discuss any specific project. I'd like to address a couple of points that the ownership group has made for justifying that the building should not be listed on the register. One of the points of contention is that this site was identified as an opportunity site in the Central City Specific Plan. And I'd just like to address that by noting that section 4.2.1 of the specific plan states that future development projects within the plan area are subject to review and approval by the city, which includes historic review of potentially eligible resources. Next, the ownership group has noted that this development or this nomination would prevent construction of housing on the parcel. While no future proposed project has been submitted to the city, staff disagrees with this assertion that the landmark designation would prevent residential, mixed use, or commercial development on this parcel. This is mostly occupied by a surface parking lot, and there are many examples in Sacramento of similar historic buildings being incorporated into creative site designs and used in a variety of ways while preserving important aspects of the city's history. I'm going to move on to historic integrity. So this is perhaps the point where the staff's analysis and the Historic Resource Associates report differs the most broadly. So a historic property must retain both significance and historic integrity to be eligible for listing. Staff's analysis differs from the consultant's analysis in several ways. This is most starkly noticed in that historic integrity does not mean the building has never been altered or that it is in need or not in need of significant maintenance. Staff agrees with Sacramento Modern and the Art Deco Society that the historic evaluation submitted by the consultants does overemphasize the alterations to the building and underemphasizes and even ignores important aspects of the building's historic significance. Staff's analysis, on the other hand, first clearly defines the property's historic significance under 3 eligibility criteria, which I'll go over in a moment, and then steps through each aspect of historic integrity to conclude that despite some modifications and deferred maintenance, the property retains sufficient integrity to convey its historic significance under the 3 criteria. The Beehive building was purpose-built as a vocational training and networking school for housewives and mothers in the 1950s and early 1960s. This was a period when women played a particularly important role in society and were often engaged in social activism. At the time, Eleanor McClatchy was the matriarch of the Sacramento Bee and McClatchy Company. She bridged the world between housewife and the emerging professional and activist classes in the post-war period. It was in this spirit and this historical moment that she commissioned the Beehive building. The building represents the physical embodiment of McClatchy's idea to bring together women of this period to help them be better wives and mothers, but also to provide them a place to network and construct support systems that could make their lives more meaningful. All of this makes it eligible under criteria 1 for significant events in the broad patterns of Sacramento history. Next, the design of the building is an exaggerated modern commercial building with Googie-inspired elements. This type of architecture developed because of technological innovation, space travel, and the post-World War II obsession with the automobile. New buildings throughout the country in this period, including the Beehive building, reflected the futuristic design inspired by these events, making it eligible under criteria 3. The Beehive building was a collaborative design by Whitston Cox and J.R. Liskey, the principal architects, along with Beck and King acting as designers for the interior. Liskey was directly informed by his time in Lawrence Hall. Cox spent 30 years with Cox, Liskey, and later Lionakis and Beaumont Architects and Engineers, a firm he co-founded in Sacramento. The firm grew to be one of the largest in Northern California, employing more than 30 architects and engineers and producing 30 to 40 million in annual construction volume. For these reasons, the Beehive building represents the work of an important creative individual or master architect, making it eligible under criteria 4. I'll conclude by noting that a number of comments have been submitted, both in favor and opposed to the landmark proposal of the Beehive building. However, staff recommends the City Council review the record, including the recommendation by the Preservation Director and the Preservation Commission, and move staff recommendation to list the Beehive building on the Sacramento Register as a landmark. I'd like to note the property ownership group is in attendance tonight and would like to make a brief presentation when requested by the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Before we turn it to the City Council, do we have public testimony on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have three people that would like to speak on this item.
Okay, let's do it.
Thank you. The first speaker is William Berg.
Good evening. My name is William Berg. I'm president of the Preservation Sacramento Board of Directors, and I'm asking you tonight to vote no on listing 2131 Q Street in the Sacramento Register. Now, because we're usually the ones asking you to support listing, I'll explain. We agree that the property meets the criteria for eligibility and said so at Preservation Director and Commission meetings. The developer, whose plans to demolish the building to make way for new housing triggered its evaluation, didn't ignore us or shut us out or minimize our concerns. They reached out and asked us for potential mitigation strategies for the loss of the building. Through careful negotiation, we collaborated and found common ground. That agreement includes a contribution to Preservation Sacramento sufficient to fund several surveys and nominations throughout the city. The Preservation Director and Commission have done their job, evaluating the property and returning a recommendation of eligibility. Ordinarily, our advice would be to follow their recommendation, but in this case, because the development team has proposed an equitable and fair alternative, we're asking you to vote no. The City Council does have the authority to deny listing to a property even against staff's recommendation. In June of 2016, the Sacramento City Council voted against listing the Mannix Barn on Capitol Avenue, nominated like this property due to a development proposal for infill housing that required demolition, despite a recommendation of support by Preservation Director and Commission. Going against staff's recommendation shouldn't be done lightly or without good reason, but it's within your power to do so, and we believe that it's justified in this instance. This agreement is in the spirit of the Community Benefits Agreement for Aggie Square, which you're discussing next, and with preservation practice in other cities, such as the Washington, D.C. Preservation League, where a project requiring loss of a historic property can sometimes be addressed through a contribution that benefits the community. This approach is new in Sacramento, but it reflects contemporary methods and practices, as well as a spirit of compromise and cooperation. Voting no to listing 2131 Q Street will allow demolition of this potential historic resource, but will facilitate a greater overall gain for the city's preservation goals and its housing goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Connor Finney.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can. Please proceed.
Great. My name is Connor. I am a District 4 resident and a renter, and on behalf of House Sacramento, we respectfully oppose the listing of this building as a historic on the Sacramento Register. Although staff and the Preservation Commission may have found some semblance of historic significance, it is in the Council's purview to consider the greater context of the effects of this potential listing. We are pleased that the landowner and the preservation community have come to terms on an agreement regarding the listing of this parcel. We are in a housing crisis, and listing of this vacant building will make it significantly more expensive to build housing on this current underutilized site, which is mostly utilized by a surface parking lot. In addition, the report commissioned by the landowner indicated a lack of historic integrity of this building. And just a final note, as a tenant in a relatively new development here in Midtown Sacramento, really what makes our communities, what fills our communities with character and makes them historic is the people. And allowing more folks to live is, I think, good in its own right. And in general, I would say that people are more important than old buildings. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your comments. The next speaker is a phone number, last four digits 7070.
Hello.
Welcome to the meeting. It's your turn to
Hello?
address the council.
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Mario Salvano. I'm a Sacramento resident as well, and I'm joining the chorus of voices to hopefully suggest a opposition to the adding of the property, the Beehive, to the historical register. As the planning department member himself said at the beginning of the meeting tonight, much work has been necessary to move the city forward towards both the climate and housing goals accomplishment. It does not stand to reason that an arbitrary historical landmark designation should stand in the way of progressing on these two fronts. As an undergraduate history major myself, I share a deep appreciation for grounding ourselves in the past so that we know where we are heading now and in the future. However, as a resident of Sacramento and the world, today, I also understand that many concerns must be balanced to meet the needs of our community. The site at 2131 Q Street may have some historical bona fides, but I do not believe that should prevent us from allowing space to be used for other uses, such as housing, going forward. The recommendation to save the architectural plans should be definitely acted upon. I think that makes nothing but sense. However, as you've heard, Preservation Sacramento themselves as an organization is now opposed to the property being added to the register. And I think this decision reflects just that kind of balancing of concerns I referred to previously. As if we were to designate every older building we find in the area as historical, we would lose a lot of precious opportunity to house and care for our neighbors. And as the prior commenter noted, we have a little bit of a crisis on our hands here. And with the agreement that was reached among some of the relevant stakeholders, I believe the historical register will in the long run be improved, possibly counterintuitively, by the short-term rejection of historical status for this specific property. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Have a good night.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Don Gibson.
I do know, Madam Clerk, if I may, before the next speaker, I do know that we have the applicant as well, right? The developers. We want to make sure that we hear from them.
Of course. Don Gibson.
Hi. I'm calling to oppose the listing of the Beehive as to be on the historic register. We're in a critical housing crisis. I've lived in Sacramento for over a decade and seen prices specifically in Midtown for rentals skyrocket, almost double in just the 10 years I've been here. If we require that building to be historically listed, it'll make it far more expensive to build housing on that site. And the last thing we need to be preserving is 1950s style places with large surface parking, which really goes against sustainability. So please do not list this. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Michael Miller.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can.
Awesome. I am voicing in opposition of the building being listed as a historic landmark. I actually had the pleasure of visiting the building 3 different times in the past 6 months, a chance that not a lot of people have, and kind of seeing the state that it is currently in. One of the things that I was looking into was what it takes to turn this building into something that will be a usable product to any sort of tenant or any sort of landmark use. And the construction costs really are something that make this very, very difficult here. And it appears, bless you. It appears to me the building and the work that it needs is just going to make everything very difficult for any sort of landowner or preservationist to keep the integrity of the building. That being said, using it to turn into housing, I think is a fantastic use of it. To my understanding, there'll be a little bit more, over 100 new residents in that small area, which brings a lot of liveliness to the neighboring businesses, brings in more tax revenue, and really helps out with our housing crisis here in Sacramento as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Mayor, I have no more speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you. Do we want to hear from, do we have anyone else to hear from?
Mayor, I believe Chris Butcher is here on behalf of the development.
The owners. We want to hear from the owners here quickly, if we may. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Chris Butcher, Thomas Law Group, on behalf of Shopoff Realty. Shopoff requests that the council deny the nomination for listing. The Historic Resource Associate Report, which is included as Attachment 6 to the staff report, demonstrates that the building does not retain adequate integrity to warrant listing as a landmark on the Sacramento Register. Moreover, there are ample policy reasons to support a decision to deny the listing. For example, the Central City Specific Plan designates this property as one of the city's housing opportunity sites in order to facilitate development of dense residential uses on the site. Secondly, redevelopment of the property will allow for contaminated soil on the site from a former Chevron facility to be cleaned up. And as Sean DeCourcy and Bill Berg discussed, a coalition, including Shopoff, Gateway Development, the local builder developer who is under contract with Shop Off to purchase the property, and Preservation Sacramento have come together to request that the council deny this listing. For all of these reasons, we respectfully request that the council deny the nomination to list the building as a landmark on the Sacramento Register. Dana Supernovich from Historic Resource Associates, as well as Brian Rupp and Christian Charbonnet from Shop Off, are available to answer any other questions the council may have. And with that, Wesley Sagewalker of Gateway Development would like to provide a few additional comments on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Butcher. We appreciate it. Let's hear from members of the city council. We'll begin with the council member's district that resides in, Council Member Valenzuela.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just want to thank staff for the vigorous work that they did on this item. It was a lot of meetings, a lot of phone calls. I also toured the building several times with different folks to talk about it and think about what this means. And I just have to say that how much I appreciate that process. I think the process, as many folks said, played out the way it was supposed to. And now it's really up to us to decide if this moves forward as recommended. You know, I just want to say that this is a really cool building with cool history. It really is. But when it comes to the integrity question, it has changed a lot. It has changed significantly. You know, this is where I think I agree the most with the consultant report that was commissioned. You know, they've had the atrium closed off. They've changed the siding. There's been an addition on the side. It doesn't look significantly like the building that it was. And it doesn't have that same integrity that really warrants the finding of this being a big work of a master, that this is something that has that characteristic. And I just want to also note that the consulting firm that was used for this isn't just a consulting firm that the developer hired. This is actually a consulting firm that I believe we use as the city to analyze projects and to look at historic resources. So this is someone that we trust so much that we've often turned to them ourselves for help with these sort of things. And they've said unequivocally that this building has just changed too much. So I actually would like to start off tonight's discussion by moving that staff bring back a resolution to not designate this as a historic landmark, both according to our registry, but also that it's not eligible as a historic resource under CEQA. So that's my motion tonight, Mayor. I just want to thank everybody who's worked so hard to bring this discussion to the point it is, and really appreciate the process playing out as it should have and the opportunity to make this motion tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember, can you repeat the motion one more time? My apologies.
Yes, sorry. The motion. So as I understand it, since the process has been initiated, we actually have a motion to have them come back to us with a resolution that says that we're not designating this as a historic resource for the city, but that we're also saying that it's not eligible as a historic resource under CEQA.
I second that.
Thank you.
All right, there's a motion and a second. We do have Councilmember Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Chris, I have a question for you. Are there any problems with toxics on the site? Is there any cleanup that's indicated on the parcel?
Yes, that's correct. There was a former Chevron facility adjacent, I believe, to the site, and the cleanup work couldn't really be completed if the building isn't removed. So a full cleanup will be possible because of a residential development moving forward on the entire site.
Okay, thank you. I think that is a significant piece in this decision. You know, I would say that the council often faces decisions that require a fair amount of discretion, and this is one of them. When we think about goals that we want to achieve and the specifics of a project, we have to weigh various factors. I believe that it was HRA, Historical Research Associates, that worked on the building in my district, Blue Diamond, and we went with their recommendation. There was a CEQA challenge. We prevailed, and that was quite a process. But through that process, I came to believe that they put out a pretty stout report. So I'm intending to go with their recommendation, and I will support my colleague, Councilmember Valenzuela.
Okay, thank you very much. No other speakers. Congratulations. This is it's another fix to our major housing challenge here. I appreciate the good work that's gone into this. Let's call the roll, please.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby is absent. Councilmember Laloe?
No.
Councilmember Laloe, just to be clear, this motion is to deny the staff recommendation and ask them to bring back the item that we discussed.
Madam Clerk, can I change that to a yes? My apologies.
Okay.
That's why I asked what your motion was, and I thought about it, but obviously I did it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll note that as a yes. Councilmember Harris?
Aye.
Councilmember Valenzuela?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chenier?
Aye.
Councilmember Guerra?
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings?
Yes.
Councilmember Vang?
Yes.
And Mayor Steinberg?
Yes, that passes 9-0. Congratulations and thank you. Let us move now to the second public hearing.
Mayor,
Yes,
just from a number standpoint, 8-0 because Councilmember Ashby is not here.
thank you for correcting me and correcting the record. It is 8-0. That's right. I'm used to 9. Okay. Let's now move to the next item, which is item 13, the Clear Channel billboard relocation item. Who's presenting on this?
Hello, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Carlo Felix, Senior Planner with Community Development. The item before you is a request to remove 4 existing billboards and to construct 1 new billboard. The request requires approval of 3 entitlements: a billboard relocation agreement, a variance for height, and site plan and design review for the new sign structure. The Planning and Design Commission held a public hearing on the project in May 2019 and recommended that the City Council approve the project. However, staff recommends denial of the project because the light glare and visual clutter from the new side negatively impacts the ability to develop adjacent properties in a manner that supports transit and does not forward the ongoing transformation of the area from an industrial hub to an urban, transit-oriented, and mixed-use neighborhood, and is therefore inconsistent with the general plan, East Sacramento Community Plan, and the 65th Street Station Area Plan. Staff has not received additional communication since the publication of the staff report, and at this time, there are currently no e-comments. The applicant's representatives, Rob Fong, Bob Schmidt, and Eric Neese, are in attendance, and they do request to make a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's fine. That's appropriate. Why don't we hear the presentation? Oh, Councilmember Harris, this is your district. I do want to give you, the courtesy. Would you be okay with hearing the presentation from the proponents first, and then speaking?
So Mayor, let's hear the proponents' presentation, then public comment, and then I'll
okay.
First up.
Very good. Let's hear from the proponents, please. You get several minutes here, all right? Not 2. Go.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is Rob Fong. It's nice to be with you, at least virtually. Thank you for allowing us to make this presentation. I'm here representing Clear Channel Outdoor. This is, as Carlo mentioned, a billboard relocation request pursuant to a city ordinance that was enacted back when I was a member of the City Council. It allows for new billboards to be constructed in exchange for the permanent removal of existing billboards pursuant to relocation agreements. The policy behind the ordinance was to only allow new billboards to be built if a certain number of existing billboards were first removed. It's an addition by subtraction. The idea behind the ordinance was to decrease the number of older billboards throughout the city and to encourage new billboards to be placed in the more heavily trafficked areas near freeways. Tonight, Clear Channel Outdoor is proposing to relocate a billboard onto a regional transit easement at the end of Reading Avenue next to Highway 50 near Sac State. The site is currently zoned industrial and supports a billboard as a matter of right. The Regional Transit Board of Directors approved the placement of the billboard in this location by unanimous vote back in October of 2018. Clear Channel has been working with Regional Transit and its staff since May of 2017, so we've been at this a while. Regional Transit will receive a long-term stable revenue from the sign. Clear Channel will be taking down 4 sign structures totaling 5 faces throughout the city as part of the relocation agreement. 2 billboards are proposed to be taken down in District 3, 1 in District 4, and 1 in District 5. As Carlo mentioned, the Planning and Design Commission voted to recommend approval of this relocation agreement request back in May of 2019. What I'd like to do is now show you a chart of the signs that have been built pursuant to the relocation ordinance since 2010. If you take a look at that, what it shows you is that it's working. The ordinance is working. Since 2010, and this is not just Clear Channel signs, a total of 31 signs have been taken down citywide. That's represented by the red dots. And that's to support the relocation of 8 new signs. So trading 31 for 8 new signs. And as you can see by the green dots, all the 8 new signs have gone up along freeways. And there's a reason for that, because in order for the economics to work, for billboard companies to take down multiple signs, putting up one sign needs to kind of make sense financially, and those kinds of placements happen around freeways. If you take a look at it, and maybe it's too small, since 2010, there have been no signs taken down or put up in District 1. Sean, in District 2, 13 signs taken down, 5 put up. You've got most of the freeways and a lot of the old signs. District 3, there have been 6 signs taken down and 1 new one put in. District 4, there's been 2 signs taken down and no new signs put up. In District 5, 4 signs taken down and no new signs put in. In District 6, 4 signs taken down, 1 new sign put in. District 7, there's 0 signs taken down and 0 signs put in. And last but not least, in District 8, there were 2 signs taken down and 1 put in. Take a look at the next chart. It just shows you what we're trying to accomplish in terms of this relocation agreement. The red dots, again, are the signs that would be taken down in the various districts on the surface streets. And the proposed location is, as I indicated, right next to Highway 50 off Reading Avenue in District 3. So a lot of people have asked me why I care so much about this billboard. And I can tell you that it's an important thing, certainly for Clear Channel. That's how we keep trying to work with the city. But I would also tell you that the relocation isn't the only thing on the agenda tonight. I would submit to you that fairness is also on the agenda tonight. In the law, courts place great weight on legal precedents. When something similar to your case has already been decided, that has great weight. When Clear Channel Outdoor was deciding to pursue this location as part of a relocation strategy, one of the things we looked at, and it was a big deciding factor for us, was how the city staff had previously dealt with a similar relocation request on the other side of Highway 50 in 2014. That was the 1 green dot in District 6. So back then in 2014, staff recommended approving the installation of an Iron Horse media sign on Reading Avenue on the other side of Highway 50 from the proposed Clear Channel Outdoor location, even though it required a general plan amendment. That sign is basically the same size as the proposed Clear Channel Outdoor sign. We're actually asking to be 5 feet taller because of the grading of the road. But when you compare the city staff reports from 2014 to the city staff reports before you today, you will see that city staff used dramatically different standards when evaluating and approving the Iron Horse Media billboard relocation and recommending denial of the Clear Channel Outdoor relocation. So I'm not going to bore you with this, but if you were actually to take the time to look at the 2 different staff reports from 2014 and 2019, you would see 2 vastly different kind of treatments of the requests. So let me go through some of the big ones, big differences. For example, what I've got in front of you is the determinations that the 65th Street Transit Overlay District would be violated by the 2019 or our request. And the language says, quote, "The proposed project does not encourage transit supportive land uses and may also hinder further mixed use development occurring in the area due to the size and high visibility of an illuminated sign that make it less desirable for residential uses." So when you look at the left side of the screen, I'm quoting to you from the staff report for the 2014 Iron Horse Media. Okay, and it said with respect to the 65th Street Transit Overlay District, this portion of the site is located adjacent to the freeway and tracks on the northeast portion, they're talking about train tracks, of the parcel and its location and size will not undermine the stated goals and visions for a transit-oriented community. The reason I'm showing this to you is because literally our proposed location is next to the freeway, nestled among light rail tracks and heavy rail tracks, just like the 2014 Iron Horse Media site. Yet you can see how they've been treated absolutely differently. The other thing I want to just highlight to you, and again, these are the high differences. One of the things that Carlos stated they felt was as a reason to issue a denial was they said that our proposed sign location, and you can go ahead and put it to the next one, Eric, it is violating a general plan policies from the 2035 general plan. And they talk about gateways and they talk about urban centers, okay? And so what I'm showing you first is language from the 2030 general plan, which was adopted March 3rd, 2009. They have those exact same goals and policies. And you can switch it to the next one. And so it's the same as the 2035 master plan. And the question I have for all of you is why, when they were analyzing the 2014 Iron Horse media sign, did they not even go through any of this analysis? But now in 2019 and here today, we're now being sort of subjected to this. And so to me, these are two really high level areas where it's obvious that for whatever reason, Clear Channel Outdoor was treated absolutely differently than Iron Horse Media. I mean, so that's why I think fairness is really on the agenda tonight too. I think that in a city of laws, it's really, really important for everyone to be treated the same. So I can tell you that, and also I just wanted to tell you that the staff actually recommended a general plan amendment to kind of get the Iron Horse Media sign across the finish line. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight there's some real problems with the way the staff has handled this vis-a-vis how they handled it before. People are also saying that there are no letters in support of this sign relocation, what we want to do, from the neighborhoods or local property owners. And I guess I just want to tell you, when you're in the billboard business, you never get a letter of support for a new sign going in to your neighborhood. You might get some letters from people saying, hey, please take this one down. So it's actually the norm to not get letters of support. I will tell you, though, that there is a unicorn here in front of you. I'm going to show it to you with the next one. So back in 2014, what I'm showing you is, this is the unicorn I want you to look at. There is a letter from Jackson Properties and John Jackson Jr., who is a developer in the area who was working on the Hampton Inn, his Hampton Inn project. And he actually submitted a letter of support to the Planning Commission for the sign across the freeway, the 2014 sign. And what I want to point out to you, which is really interesting, is at the last sentence of the second paragraph, he says, currently we are in the process of working with City of Sacramento staff on a proposal that will lead to the development of the property. Next paragraph, we believe that the billboard will not present a challenge to either the development of the property or the operation of the property. I'm also showing you on the left side a letter or an email of support from Power in Alliance in support of this 2014 billboard. They've both of these folks have submitted letters of opposition to our project. And the reason I'm showing that to you is because it doesn't make any sense to me that they would be supportive of the one on one side of the freeway and not supportive of the one on the other side. I also want to just point out that Power in Alliance, the sign where we're proposing the location, it's not even in the boundaries of the Power in Alliance. So I can also tell you that the owner of the Iron Horse Media billboard, Dave Nybo, at the time this was submitted in 2014, was the vice chair of your Planning and Design Commission. That was the same Planning and Design Commission that John Jackson was working through and working with his Hampton Inn proposal. And so our sense of it is that the city's laws should be applied fairly and transparently, whether you're a billboard company or the vice chair of the Planning and Design Commission. And then I just want to briefly touch on that we also disagree with the merits of the findings in terms of the recommendation of the.
If we can wrap it up here a little bit, please.
Okay. So billboard next to Highway 50 on a regional transit easement is not inconsistent with the 65th Street plan. You can see that in the 2014 treatment of the 2014 sign. Lease revenue generated by the billboard is paid directly to regional transit. The RT board unanimously voted to approve that board at that location. Weirdly, Jeff Harris was voted for that as a member of the RT board, not weird, ironically. And to me, if regional transit allowed this to go forward, it doesn't seem like it would be inconsistent with transit-oriented development. Nothing else can be developed there. It's a small circle of land next to the train tracks and the freeway. The signpost is 7 feet in diameter. Development won't stop if you approve a billboard on the RT easement. The presence of the other board since 2014 and Sac State Digital Board, as well as other street boards, has not stopped any development from happening in this area. There are 31,000 really good reasons why this land will continue to be developed. It's the students at Sac State. So your Planning and Design Commission voted 8-3 to approve the relocation agreement in spite of the staff's recommendation to deny it. We're actually shocked that the staff was still in a denial mode. I'm not sure why we went through the whole hearing process, but we've been really patient. We would love to have you approve this tonight. And what I'd like to do, and we're almost done, Mayor, is I'd like to at least now turn this over to Bob Schmidt, who's the regional president for Clear Channel Outdoor Northern California.
Just a couple minutes, Bob, please.
Mayor, can I ask that we bring this to a relatively quick?
Yeah, no, that is what I asked. Yes.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. So as Rob said, we're pleased to be here tonight. Thanks for allowing us to make the presentation. The out-of-home industry is highly regulated. So in addition to the Sacramento city sign code, it's regulated by the state of California, specifically Caltrans. And Caltrans relocation agreements is difficult. Vetting locations that comply with the strict requirements. Zoning is critical. Spacing is critical. Illumination is critical. And then, we try to build sign that our clients want. So from their perspective, they want to reach, desired audience, the more people, the better. This proposal meets and exceeds all the criteria listed in the city and state guidelines. I also think that it's a perfect place for a billboard, but I want to make this project real as opposed to a series of reports. And so to help us accomplish, I have a minute video.
1 minute, then we're going to wrap it up here. Okay. The rest will be with questions.
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Yep. So that is a cell site. It's a marker because the billboard would go directly across from it. As you can start to see, it's clearly an industrial area with heavy rail, with light rail. We've got the proposed site that we're going to get a closer view of very, very shortly. Okay, I just want to talk here about this particular location is that it is adjacent to a cell tower. It is adjacent to light rail. It is adjacent to heavy rail. It is below a freeway. It's below adjacent to a billboard as well. And so the sign code gives very specific guidance to the council on how they should evaluate prospective signs. And what they say is this. What they say is the council should make a decision based on relocation. Is it the signage compatible with the uses and structures on the site and surrounding area? Clearly a cell tower, clearly light rail, clearly heavy rail, clearly a freeway are consistent and compatible. The relocation site will not interfere with access circulation to it. You can see that it doesn't do any of those things. It's on private property. Anybody than RT or Clear Channel would be trespassing on that particular thing.
Okay.
It is not a public thoroughfare, and so it won't create a traffic or safety hazard. That's another one of the guidelines. And the last guideline is relocated signage will not result in any undue or significant increase in visual clutter. It meets the takedowns by the number of signs, and it meets the reduction in square footage. So those are the facts, and those are the guidelines. And I just thought you'd like to see a visual representation. I'd like to see the signs that are coming down. We think it's more aesthetically. These signs should come down. This is a rendering. This is directionally facing the freeway. It also has new illumination, new LEDs that can be directional. They're also very inefficient.
Bob, I did ask you to please wrap it up now. That's it.
So I just wanted to show you, this is what it's going to look like. We think it stands on its own. It doesn't have the encumbrance of having motion like a Trivision does.
Mr. Schmidt,
It doesn't require any amendment change.
Mr. Schmidt.
So, in conclusion, it fits squarely within the city's sign relocation ordinance. It fulfills the policy of reducing the total number of signs. It was approved by the RT board and will provide long, stable income for public transportation. It's all union work. These are all good paying jobs. We're probably the only one of the few companies that uses labor on this.
Mr. Schmidt.
Appreciate it. I rushed through it very quickly.
No, Bob, we gave you more than enough time. More than enough time. And it's a little frustrating to me that you didn't pick up the cues here. We've got a council member here who wants to be heard. There are two sides to this. And so please, you've done a great job, and certainly Rob did a great job laying out the argument, but let the council know, get into the discussion, please. That's what we need to do. Let's hear from members of the public, please.
The first speaker is Steve Blanton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Clerk, and members of the Town Council. My name is Steve Blanton. I am the Executive Director of the Power and Alliance, and I want to say this evening that we support the staff recommendation to deny this application. And I'd like to address the kind of the concept of unfairness and just point out that although there have been two other signs approved in the area, that's not an argument to approve a third. By that logic, once you approve one sign, you can never not approve a sign that comes forward to you. At some point, I think it's incumbent upon the council to use discretion and judgment and say, well, there's enough of a certain resource, in this case, billboards in an area, and that to put more in there is not a benefit. It's actually a detraction. And I think that's where we're at. On the idea of visual clutter, we believe that it does increase visual clutter to the area significantly. And although we appreciate the idea of diminishing some of the other signs, I'd like to point out that at least half of those signs are outside of the immediate area. So it might be a benefit to another part of the city, but not to the people in this area. And also, I thought it was telling to have in your packet there, the impacts, the economic impacts to the area. And this is an area that is in transition. It's in revitalization mode. And to kind of blunt that or have something that will take some of that energy away, we think it's not the time to do this. You have residential, you have commercial, you have some really exciting projects going on in the area, and it's not the time to risk that. And I think going forward, maybe maybe not tonight, but as we work on this in the future, maybe looking at visual impressions might be another metric that could be used. Of course, here the scale is way off in favor of larger visual impressions. So for those reasons, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, we would ask that you follow your staff recommendation and deny the project.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Kevin Fiera.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes, of course.
Of Mr. Blanton. So this sign is outside the power in boundaries. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct. I think it's very close to the boundary, though. And
has the power in organization taken positions on billboards outside of its boundaries before?
Well, Mr. Fong presented a letter from one of my predecessors on the other side of the freeway. So I think looking at it, very closely, I think this is in our sphere of influence, if perhaps not in our direct boundary. I would put it that way.
Okay, but the one time that you've done this was taking a positive position on a sign?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Kevin Fiero.
Okay.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. Kevin Ferrer, the Executive Director of the Sacramento Sierras Building and Construction Trades Council. We're in support of the Clear Channel billboard relocation. Our members are looking forward into removing the signs and also installing the new sign. Caltrans and SAC-RT have already approved this project, and we are asking that the City Council do the same. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Mayor, I have no more speakers.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's open it up to the council. I know I've got a number of questions. I know other members do as well, but let's start with Councilmember Harris.
So Mayor and Council, you all know Rob Fong. You probably know that he's a lawyer, and he just did a very good presentation as a legal representative would, and took plenty of time to do it. Also made it a little personal, so I want to address that as well. I have a lot to say here, and I'm going to take the time I need to say it, just so you know. Probably might even match the presentation that you just heard. There's a couple of things I want to talk about, which are the goals of the city, generally speaking. We have many goals that we try to achieve. I'm going to address that. Talk about the benefits of this billboard versus a lack of benefits. Talk about implications with RT. Talk about our ordinance. Talk about the legal latitude by which we could deny this project, which, by the way, denial is proposed by our award-winning planning staff. I want to emphasize that. When our planning staff, which we just lauded, makes a recommendation, I think that you should take it as a very valuable recommendation. First, about goals. You know, we have a goal of old to relocate billboards along transit channels, freeways, and so forth. That is a reasonable goal. And to take down static billboards in other areas can be regarded as a plus, certainly in the areas where they're removed. Understand that in this situation, smaller static billboards would be removed in more obscure areas, and a very large, highly elevated and illuminated static billboard would take their place. So that is something to consider. There is a benefit there. In this case, the benefits are not all reaped by District 3, but other districts as well. This billboard will not generate any revenue for the city. But I would say this, you know, I talked about the goals of billboard removal. Those are minuscule compared to other goals that are achieved in this very area. When we talk about our housing needs, when we talk about our very discrete goal and distinct goal for transit-oriented development, this area is coming alive like no other area in the city. We are creating hundreds of units of housing in this area. The proponents would have you think that this is still a neglected industrial area. It is not. It is rapidly becoming our flagship transit-oriented development corridor. And that's very important because these developers are pouring millions of dollars into our economy in terms of property tax. The hotel brings a lot of TOT tax, very solid benefits for the city, brings revenue for the city council to work with for the betterment of our city. At RT, yes, this was brought forward, and whether or not RT would allow a billboard on this site, it is RT property. And as Rong said, I ironically voted yes on that. Well, let me explain. As an RT board member, I vote on what is best for RT. Looking at it through the RT lens, there was certainly not a problem to put a billboard on the site that brought revenue to the transit district. And so I feel that my decision in that regard was absolutely appropriate. At that time, I was not voting on whether or not this comported with our sign relocation ordinance or affected the goals, overarching goals of the city. So two very different decisions taken in two very different conditions. Now, if you look at our sign relocation ordinance, well, no, actually, I'm going to take a different tack. You know what? In our last decision that we took on the historic preservation item, there was tremendous discretion involved in that decision. There was a lot of choice made there. And what was happening in the undercurrent was supporting goals of our city regarding housing as maybe a higher use of that. And we used our discretion to say, okay, the alteration of that building was trumped by probably a higher and better use. There were things that made more sense to the council than the proposal at hand. I would say that the same applies here. In the sign relocation ordinance, which is 15.148.815, under G, number 5, a finding that the relocated sign will not result in any undue or significant increase in visual clutter in the surrounding new site, in or surrounding the new site. That is absolutely adequate reason to deny the proponent's proposal to put up a billboard, which certainly benefits them financially and brings a small amount of revenue to RT. Now, I spoke to the general manager of RT about this particular proposal, and his quote to me was, Jeff, the amount of revenue that this brings, up to $50,000 a month, is relatively almost insignificant to the budget of regional transit. What is most important to us is the ridership we will attain from the transit-oriented development that you are bringing to this area, that you're working hard with developers to bring to this area. So that brings me to another point I want to stress. This billboard does not significantly benefit RT, but the TOD does in a very, very big way. It comports with our goals for climate change, it lowers vehicle miles traveled, and it gives us housing stock. Those are very significant benefits to the city, as well as the tax benefits that I mentioned earlier. So, basically, this billboard does nothing for the city. It doesn't bring us revenue. It doesn't help us achieve goals. The question then is, do we have the discretion to deny the applicant? And we do, as I just mentioned with the sign relocation ordinance. To be fair, there is a slight benefit to approve this project, but all of the developers that I've talked about do not want this sign. The neighborhood associations do not want this sign. The adjacent PBID does not want this sign. There are reasons for that. It is actually deleterious to propose future development in the area. And all of this development means that this is not a commercial or industrial corridor anymore. It is a residential area. And the residents are going to be living right next to this billboard, which is lit all night. And granted, there is other visual clutter. Yeah, there's RT, there's a freeway there, but there's also an existing big billboard across the freeway. There are static billboards in the area. There's the big electronic sign at Sac State. This does add unnecessary visual clutter to a residential area. And I hope that you will consider that fact as we move forward. I may hear from one of my colleagues that there's a lot of subjectivity here. Well, of course there is. Subjectivity is part of discretion. You have to use subjectivity about whether this is undue and excessive clutter in the area. Certainly in the eyes of the developers it is. And I have to tell you, as representative of District 3, I have to listen to my constituents. Sometimes we act as trustees, but oftentimes we act as representatives. In this situation, I have to act as a representative of all my constituents and the developers who are pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into these projects To me, that absolutely outweighs the very small benefit of reducing the number of static billboards, small static billboards across the city, to put up a really big one. You know, we have other developments coming up. One is Q Street Commons, directly across the street from this billboard. Another potential development is Jim Sullivan's property. And by the way, he wrote a letter of opposition, as did John Jackson. And his development would be facing directly the billboard from not many feet away. You have to think about the long game. You have to think about the future. This transit-oriented area is really important to the city of Sacramento. I would say that just, I've talked about the benefits. I've talked about the ordinance, my constituents, the goals to the city. I urge you to make a decision based upon good discretion, based upon the broader goals of the city, and not upon politics, lobbying, or benefits to a corporation. This is an important decision. It's not a big project, but it can affect very big projects adversely. All of the developers have said that this is a problem for them. And I, for one, am going to listen to that. And as far as John Jackson and his letter of support for the other billboard, in the proponents' arguments, they mentioned that conditions have not changed in this area. Nothing could be farther from the truth. In fact, I'm going to read this to you. The conditions surrounding the site are the same as they were when an identical billboard approved for Rogers Media nearby. That is not the case. This area is greatly changed, changing quickly. The parameters for making this decision are very different. And John Jackson has changed his mind. That happens. The council changes its mind. As time progresses, our goals change, our visions change. I urge you to make the right decision for the betterment of the city and to support the staff recommendation. So I am moving at this time staff's recommendation to deny this project and the discretionary permits for all the reasons that I've stated above. Now, I may not be as good as Rob Fong because I'm not a lawyer, but I think I've presented some pretty plausible arguments. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Harris, does that also include opening and closing the public hearing?
It does indeed. I would like to open and close the public hearing, move the staff recommendation for denial of the permits for this billboard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Passionate debate here. Okay, we'll see if there's a second. I see Councilmember Guerra, Councilmember Valenzuela, and then I'm going to ask some questions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll keep my comments brief here. First, I do want to say that I appreciate the presentation by the applicants and discussing the effort to provide benefits for very much needed public resources. Regional transit, obviously, they would benefit directly from this. I think they were trying to look at a type of additional community benefits agreement as well. All very laudable. And this has been discussed, I think, first brought back in 2019 here. And, a couple things that I want to, elevate the points that Councilmember Harris brought up is that the history of that area. The 65th Transit Village area has been an area that has been in the works since the early 2000s. In fact, I remember going to a number of the hearings as a college student to try to look at what was an industrial area with warehouses and fleet yards and of the like along what was Old Highway 50. We've made a significant number of changes to change that area. And even this council here, many of those who are still in the council voted to change the fee structure for the 65th Street Transit Village area, all the way down to the south part and on the north part of Highway 50. For a particular reason, we changed that fee structure because we wanted to prime the pump to convert what was an industrial area to a new area with housing, with transit. Those folks around the university, responsible to the adjacent communities. And during that time frame, there were a couple of billboards that were posted up. And as that's moved forward, I think that we've seen great success. So all to say that even now we continue to look at moving some of the industrial uses out of the 65th Street area into the Power Inn area, so where it better meets its needs, where it better meets those needs, so that we can reserve the very limited land that we have for needed housing to reduce vehicle miles traveled. So I think I want to underscore that. And while this project is in District 4 or District 3, the property line of the easement is the district line for District 6. And I've heard very clearly from my constituents on Reading Avenue who live there, who saw the first sign come up and were concerned about it, but understood that there are benefits to having these digital billboards, these signs. They have a place. Then the second one coming up, which provided some benefits, and very concerned about where that's going. But now the third sign definitely seems that it's kind of moved that mark. So I took a drive today to that area on Reading Avenue because I live right by it. I'm around the corner here, and to get a look at it. And just from driving there and seeing where we moved, what changes have happened, my gut, the gut feeling of it, it is not the best location for that sign. These signs serve a purpose. They are part of our commerce and our city's commerce and economic vitality. But this is a situation where it's the wrong location in an area that has shown some major success. So I feel like there are better locations throughout the region. In fact, in 2019, there were folks who had presented to the council and council members different locations for these. So I have no doubt that there are better locations that will be proposed. And as the city looks to fulfill its obligations with the other entities here, I see those signs coming forward. So on balance, while there is money for RT, while there is an opportunity for maybe a community benefits agreement, given the amount of energy we put into revitalizing that area, I have to second Council Members Harris's motion to deny the project, because the planning staff, I think, has said a good argument that it does not, that location is not the best outcome for our many goals. One, we have economic goals, we have competing housing goals, but for our many goals. So I'll leave it there, Mr. Mayor, and want to again appreciate the applicant and their presentation, and also their thoughtfulness on how to put together a project forward that would benefit the city.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Guerra. Councilmember Valenzuela, and then me.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, colleagues, for adding such robust context to this discussion, because I have to admit, when you read this, it sure does look like we're arguing both sides of the coin. And so I would really like to ask Carlo if he's still on. I'm just super curious, planning staff, because I do really value your opinions, and I'm reading two analyses, one for one billboard on one side of the freeway, another for another billboard on the other side of the freeway, and it does seem very different. And so I'm wondering if staff has any response to the concerns, and then I have some more comments after that.
Thank you, Councilmember Valenzuela. In the 6 or 8 years since the approval of the billboard on the south side, as Councilmember Harris mentioned, there has been a big transition or transformation of that area. So it is within a residential mixed use zone, which does allow for residential developments, including several mid-rise student-oriented housing developments. The most recent one was approved just last week that would house about 400 students. So we do see this as a different site, and we also do acknowledge that although a sign is being taken down 300 feet away from this sign, there are 2 existing signs including the Sacramento State digital sign about 1,000 feet to the east.
Okay, thank you, Carlo, for those points. So I'm going to be honest. I have 2 points of concern here. One is that I really, really don't like that billboard on 16th and Broadway. No offense, Clear Channel, but I think it's vandalized all the time. It's a blight. It's right in the middle of like a commercial area and a residential area. It doesn't belong there. And I'm stoked that might get taken down. And so that's one angle of what I'm looking at, just to be fully transparent. But the other angle here, I think even with staff's explanation right there, it does feel like we're treating 2 projects very, very differently. And I appreciate what my colleagues are saying in terms of like, there's a gut feeling here. We don't like it. This doesn't feel right. We're trying to do this, but like, we have to be above that level of subjectivity, I think, for projects like this. And, you know, I just find it also really like, I'm confused, right? Because on the one hand, we're saying we're trying to move industrial uses out, but on the other hand, we rezoned a parcel to be industrial, I believe, so that we could allow a sign in this area right around the same time we were doing analysis for another sign saying, no, we don't like it. And so I guess I'm having a hard time with the smell test on this one, because I appreciate that there's a lot of context here in the districts. And I appreciate that there's been a lot of discussion before I came into office here, but it just doesn't make sense to me that we would apply such different standards to 2 projects that arguably, I actually think this project makes a lot more sense than the one south of the freeway did when I look at the conditions and what we did in that case. So in the interest of fairness, I believe we have to be able to cite more objective standards than this. And so I am actually going to propose a substitute motion here that we reject staff's recommendation and approve this project. I wish I could get there on the objective reasonings here, but I just can't. I've looked at the site, I've looked at the arguments, I've looked at the documents from 2014. It just doesn't add up that much would have changed, that we would be treating so similar projects that differently. It doesn't. And so I have to go with my own integrity here and just how I feel about this, and with all, respect to my colleagues whose district this directly impacts, and move a substitute motion to reject staff's recommendation and approve the project.
Okay, there is a substitute.
I'll second that motion.
That's second by Councilmember Vang. Okay, I'm gonna take the floor here. There is a substitute motion on the floor. I have some questions here. And so I want to just start by explaining the way I look at this. And boy, never have we had more controversy or interest over a single billboard, but that's the way it goes. It can't be all about, the great societal issues of the day. This is important to the company. It's important to the district. It's important to the council member. And I respect everybody's advocacy here. The way that I look at this is that there was a real purpose to the 2007 relocation ordinance. And that is to clean up the clutter, the visual clutter, the blight from billboards that were within the inner city, so to speak, and to replace them with billboards adjoining the freeway, because that's the place where billboards get the most viewing. And arguably, in most cases, it's less obtrusive than being next to a business corridor or a neighborhood. Okay, that's the policy. So the staff recommendation says there should be an exception to the policy. And they're saying in their findings, and Councilmember Harris is essentially arguing the same thing, that allowing this billboard on this side of the freeway will harm the economic prospects of the development that is proposed, and that will continue. And is hearing from some constituents, developers who are saying that. And that's what I want to dig into, because it's not fair, right, for anybody to make an assertion without examining whether or not it holds up to scrutiny. So this is my first question for our city staff. Where is the gentleman here?
I'm here, Mayor.
There you go, Mr. Felix. I'm sorry. So you did talk about the history, and when the Rogers Media billboard was approved back in 2014, and approved because the argument was that it would be consistent with transit-oriented development, putting it on the freeway. And I suppose that Rogers had to tear down some billboards themselves in that transaction. How much development has gone on adjacent to that billboard since 2014.
There on the site, which is formerly known as the Doris Lumber site, there is an approved project that went to Planning Design Commission and City Council in 2019. It's called The Retreat. It's for 224 units and 736 beds.
So the developer went forward with that project despite the billboard that was lurking, if you will, over that property.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So then let me now get to the staff report itself and some of the exhibits here. If we could, Madam Clerk, I don't know if this is possible, but I know that the report is paginated, and I think it is page 67 of 72 in the staff report. It's part of the presentation by the applicant. Is it possible we could put that up?
Let me try to pull it up.
Okay, I appreciate it. Okay, take your time. Or we could all drive out there.
So Mayor, while the clerk is trying to pull that up, we have, oh, there it is.
Thank you. So I just would like, Mr. Felix's reaction to the bottom half there, the picture where the applicant says, the proponent says that the relocation agreement would remove the sign at the left, 290 feet from proposed future development, and replace it with a sign closer to the freeway, which is farther away. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I believe that statement is correct.
Okay, so in terms of at least the proximity of the billboard, I understand the freeway billboard is larger, but from actually with regard to both billboards, the one being taken down and the one being proposed, it doesn't appear to be like in the way as far as I can see. Then I move now to page 70 of 72. If we can. This is the Hampton Inn and Suites, and there's been a lot of conversation about the Hampton Inn and Suites, that it would the proposed billboard would provide some form of a visual blight for this new hotel. And what the applicant claims here is that the only time a person who was staying at the hotel could see the billboard would be if they were in one part of the hallway facing east and no view of the billboard at all from any of the rooms. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, Mayor. Was that question directed to myself?
Yes, it's directed to you, Carlo. I'm sorry. Maybe you don't know. You don't know because you probably don't hang out there, right?
I do not hang out there, but I believe that it may be within view of the northern rooms of the hotel.
Okay. And so here's where I'm struck with, kind of like Councilmember Valenzuela a little bit. I understand that times change, and I understand that, as Councilman Harris said, that we have the right, in fact, we have the obligation to use our discretion in different circumstances. I'm having a hard time understanding or coming to the conclusion that the circumstances have changed so much that we ought to make a different decision. In other words, development occurred after the first billboard. Development appears to be continuing. Some of the claims about the visual obstacle that this billboard would provide with the existing development really doesn't seem that strong to me. And so you weigh that, the lack of a strong case here, that there somehow is going to be a detriment to the transit-oriented development future of this important area of our city. You balance that against the fact that the sign relocation ordinance has a clear purpose, and that is to tear down, the urban sites and build these billboards on the freeway. And that's exactly what's being called for here. So I'm willing to listen, but to my colleagues or anybody else, but I lean towards supporting the substitute motion for the reasons I've just expressed. Thank you. Let's go. I know Councilmember Harris, you can have the last word here, of course. But I got Vice Mayor Chenier and then Councilmember Guerra again.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just a couple clarifying questions for me. Carlo, I think this would be for you. Since the other sign went up, could you kind of run down the list of developments in the area that have either been built or have their permits or ready to go? Like, where are they on that?
Yes, sir. So the retreat on the south side approved or has received its entitlements, however, has not proceeded to construction. Further to the west, the closest one would be a project called Q Street Commons. Those entitlements have been approved, but construction has not proceeded yet. And then the larger one, 65 East, that is under construction. I think they're nearing completion. And Opus Student Housing is also within the area. That was recently approved and has not proceeded to building permit yet.
Jay, those last developments are on the other side of the freeway, closer to the newer proposed billboard. They're not south of the freeway, looking at the older billboard.
No, I understand, but they've all been approved or constructed since the other sign has been up. Is that fair to say?
That is correct.
Okay. And could you talk a little bit about the discussion at the Planning Commission? It's interesting that it was an 8-3 vote on this. And what was the reasoning behind their decision, if you were there?
Yes. I don't have any of these comments in my notes attributed to a particular commissioner, but the commission as a whole was not convinced or persuaded by staff's argument. Some of this was based on a comparison with San Francisco, which does have a lot of signs adjacent to residential development, as well as some signs in other parts of the city that have seen residential developments be constructed next to them. So those were the focus of the comments received at the Planning and Design Commission.
Okay. And then how often have we had the sign ordinance been worked? How often has that worked where we've traded these signs? I know Rob went through some of it, but if you can give us more of a recent history on that, that would be great.
The last one we did was the one Mr. Fong did describe on the south side. That was back in 2014.
So we haven't taken down any billboards since 2014?
Not as a part of the billboard relocation process.
Okay, all right. And the 4 billboards that are identified to be taken down, how does the planning department feel about that? Do they think that enhances those neighborhoods and those areas?
As a whole, we are supportive of them, especially when they are adjacent to residential development. I believe the one that is the closest to residential development is the one at 5936 Freeport Boulevard. That's Freeport and 38th Avenue.
Right. Okay. And Jeff, if I can confirm with you, so the revenue to RT would be $600,000 a year. Is that correct?
No, Jay.
I thought you said $50,000 a month.
Yeah, up to $50,000 a month. So in the report, it cited $500,000 over 10 years.
Okay, so that doesn't make any sense. That's up to 50,000 a month. It would be up to 600,000 a year.
No, not per month, per year, 50,000 per year.
Oh, per year. I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you said then. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I've had my questions answered.
Okay, thank you very much. Excuse me, I'll go back on here. I've got Councilmember Laloe.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. Where this proposed sign will go, and I guess this might be a question to going back to Carlo again. Would this inhibit any developer from building anything that they want in the future? Or do you see this sign that might cause a roadblock for future development?
Because the area has seen so much investment, not only publicly but privately, staff is concerned that a billboard of this size, configuration, location would affect the ability to most efficiently develop the properties to the north. But at this time, we do not have an active development application on those sites. So I could not just say that with certainty for those property owners or developers.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Laloe. Let's go Councilmember Guerra, and then Councilmember Harris will have the last word.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to clear up the fact that even though after the sign that was built in 2014 went in, and I worked extensively to try to get Doris Lumber site approved, it has not even had a single shovel break that ground. So while it's nice to approve things, nothing has been built next to that sign that has gone up along the freeway there. The second thing that I'll point out here is there is an issue. I believe in the sign ordinance. The sign ordinance is a great ordinance. Let's try to reduce the amount of clutter that is throughout the state, the city, with signs, and having better use and better quality signs that are maintained. But what this message is sending, hey, let's put one big massive sign in the east area communities, the southeast area communities, not just one, but you'll have a total of 3 in an effort to improve 16th Street downtown. So there's a little bit of equity questions here as well. Where are we moving some of this? Now there is one on Folsom Boulevard that is on the 69th part that has seen better days that it would go down. But I would want to clarify those points there. And again, it's you have another sign. Again, nobody said that 1 was a bad issue. It's 1,000 feet away. Nobody said 2 was a bad issue. But now this third digital sign in an area where we're trying to develop. Look, I love chorizo tacos, but man, I'll tell you something. Too many of those, they'll kill you. So I think that we should think about, when is enough in a certain geographic area.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Guerra. Let's turn it over to Councilmember Harris, and we'll take a vote first on the substitute motion.
Thanks, Mayor. So I want to talk about contradictions since they've come up so much. We just determined that one of the goals of the sign relocation ordinance is to remove clutter in residential neighborhoods. At the same time, as I pointed out, we're building a residential neighborhood right here, and this proposal puts up a very large billboard in a residential area. To me, that's a huge contradiction that the council, possibly a future council, will say, why did we do that? Why did we put this massive billboard next to all these residences? When you talk about the detriment that the developers have brought forward, what they will say is there are rooms that will face this billboard, and those rooms will be harder to lease or rent. And they worry about that they can have areas of their building that face the billboard that will be much more of a struggle for them to manage in the future. I would like to call up Tom Pace because, a lot of these arguments are pointing to discrepancies in planning staff's reasoning. Tom is our community development director, and I would like him to talk about the findings of staff, again, our award-winning staff, and address, what appear to be brought forward as discrepancies in their thinking.
Thank you, Councilmember Harris. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Tom Pace, Director of Community Development. I do want to, I think, draw some attention away from the idea of consistency or uniformity in decision-making for billboard decisions as being the criterion that should govern the council's decision-making. Actually, the relocation ordinance has a series of findings indicated in the ordinance, which staff has addressed. And one of those is about ensuring that the relocated signage would not result in an undue or significant increase in visual clutter in the area surrounding the new site. And as time has gone by and the first sign went in and then the second sign went in, now we have a proposal for a third sign. So I think that's a key consideration is the increasing number of signs being proposed to go into the area and the threshold at which visual clutter is exceeded. And we suggest that this sign would be that point. And so we're concerned about that and the effect that it would have. I also think that with the passage of time, and the fact that it's on the other side of the freeway, it's in a different planning area, and the extensive amount of residential development that has occurred on the north side of the freeway in particular, that the circumstances are different today than they were 7 years ago. And generally speaking, our goal is to see new billboard signs located in commercial or industrial areas where they won't impact residents. And this area is transitioning from what was formerly an industrial area into a residential mixed-use district. And so it would be more appropriate, I believe, for a new billboard sign to be located in an industrial or commercial area rather than in a residential or residential mixed-use area such as this one. And so the findings that need to be made by council required in order for the council to approve the relocation agreement. And the visual clutter is a key one, and also, of course, compatibility with the planning goals for the area as well.
Jeff, can I follow up on that question and then turn it back to you? Would you mind?
Go for it, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Donna, what is the relevance of that sign that is being taken down under the proposal that is closer to the proposed development than the proposed freeway sign? It's not washing with me here.
Well, if you look
it's not more, Jeff. I don't care. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to suggest, I don't know, Councilmember Harris, if this is what you're going to say, but the new sign obviously would be bigger and would be more visible than the sign that's being proposed nearby to be removed. And so
farther away, though.
It's increasing the visual clutter in the area.
But it's farther away.
Daryl, you have to understand there are two developments proposed very close to this new billboard location, Q Street Commons and a potential development by Jim Sullivan in the 3.5 acres adjacent Airgas. And in fact, Airgas will very likely relocate and become housing there as well. In other words, this billboard will be planted right in the middle of very intensive transit-oriented development. Again, I argue that it meets goals for the city. There are definitely grounds for denial of the permit per the sign relocation ordinance, and we get significant benefits with our larger goals of climate adaptation, housing needs. It just makes sense to me.
Thank you. Jeff, finish, please. You were concluding. I'm sorry.
Well, I think we've flogged the horse long enough.
Okay.
I just hope that the council exercises the discretion similar to what they did in the previous item and comes to the correct conclusion.
Okay. Councilmember Valenzuela had a substitute motion, which was seconded by Councilmember Vang, to approve the project, essentially to deny the staff recommendation. That's the motion before us. Let's call the roll, please.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Laloe,
Yes.
Councilmember Harris,
No.
Councilmember Valenzuela,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chenier,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
No.
Councilmember Jennings,
Yes.
Councilmember Vang,
Yes.
and Mayor Steinberg.
Yes, that passes 7-2. Thank you all very much for a very important debate. Good debate. Okay. Councilmember Chenier, Vice Mayor, I'm going to turn it over to you for the rest of the meeting, please.
Okay, let's
Thank you.
move to the next item, which is Aggie Square CFD. Who is presenting on this one?
Hi, good evening, Vice Mayor Chenier, Eric Frederick with the Finance Department. The item before you is the public hearing on the formation of the Aggie Square Community Facilities District number 2021-01, or just the CFD for short. If formed, the CFD will allow for tax-exempt bond financing to reimburse the developer of the Aggie Square project for the cost of public infrastructure to be acquired by the city. New public infrastructure necessary for the development of Phase 1 of Aggie Square includes roadway, water, stormwater, and sewer improvements within and surrounding the project. Staff's recommendation is to open the public hearing and, upon conclusion, adopt the resolutions in your packet to officially form the CFD and authorize other related actions. Thank you, and staff is available for any questions.
Okay, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comments on this item?
Vice Mayor, I have no hands raised to make comments on this item.
Okay, Mr. Guerra, go ahead.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I'll go ahead and open and close the public hearing and move the item.
All right, and you'll get a second from me.
Jennings will second.
Oh, all right, Mr. Jennings.
Well, I'll let you second since I'll let you do that.
Eric and I share this one, and basically this lets us access funds quicker in working the CFD in conjunction with the EIFD, so which is a new financing instrument. So we have a motion and a second. Any other comments by members of the council? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Ashby,
Yes.
Councilmember Laloe,
Aye.
Councilmember Harris,
Aye.
Councilmember Valenzuela,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Chenier,
Yes.
Councilmember Guerra,
Aye.
Councilmember Jennings,
Yes.
Councilmember Vang,
Yes.
and Mayor Steinberg is absent.
Okay, so that's a unanimous vote from those present. Let's go ahead and move to the next item. Council comments, ideas, questions?
Yeah, Jay, I have a couple of comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
So as you all know, we just underwent an historic storm. 5.4 inches of rain fell in 24 hours, which is unprecedented. Never happened before in the city of Sacramento. Really a pretty remarkable rain event, a class 5 atmospheric river. Imagine basically the Sacramento River up in the sky and just being dumped down on the ground. That's basically what happened. It was a remarkable event. Our city was subject to a lot of localized flooding. And as you know, the McKinley Park area is one of the lowest spots in the city and has historically dealt with tremendous flooding, even in a 10-year storm. This storm has now been classified as a 500-year storm, a 0.02% that storm could happen in any given year, 0.2% chance that we would have a storm like that. Pretty remarkable. So look at what happened in our city. Our Department of Utilities got busy. They were everywhere. They unclogged DIs. They made really good decisions about pumping stations and how to manage the water. They solved myriad problems. And really just a couple hours after the rain quit, things were in great shape. So I want to talk about the McKinley Vault, which you all supported, and was built at a cost of about $30 million. Did it work? It worked remarkably well. 6 million gallons were stored underground that were not on the city streets. Had a storm of this magnitude hit McKinley Park area without the vault, it would still be inundated. We would still be cleaning up sanitary sewer outflows. We did have an outflow, that some combined sewage did make it to the street, but it was confined to a very small area and cleaned up in a matter of about 4 hours. Pretty remarkable. Cleaned up and sanitized when a 10-year storm would cause us heartache for days in the past. I'm very pleased with the performance of the McKinley Vault. And of course, I'm very excited about the park improvements. But I just have to give great big kudos to our Department of Utilities and all its workers who labored through the night in the rain to make sure that our city came out with minimal amount of inconvenience and damage. And they did so admirably. I'm really proud of our DOU.
Jeff, if I can add to that, and congratulations on that. I know it was a heavy lift to get that, and there were a lot of folks in the neighborhood that were opposed. We had a similar situation in Oak Park, also with building a vault underneath, and kind of went through the same thing over the storm. And so just kudos to Hector and all of his folks. Did a great job in the storm. Any other comments, members of the council?
I would just like to add on to the kudos to city teams, echoing everything that Councilmember Harris just said. A kudos to our Department of Community Response team. They are staffing storm centers. I think it's a unique thing for us, a real lesson that we've learned over the last year. And it was so well run. I went there, as I always did, during the warming centers to say, hey, what can we do? How can we help? And they were on it. I mean, Nick had the charging station set up and everything. And it's just so great to have that department. And I really hope that we can keep building their capacity, because they clearly demonstrating that they can knock it out of the park with every little bit we give them. So adding on to the kudos for the warming centers, obviously we know we want more. We want to do this more often, but I think we're on a great start and just want to commend them for that effort.
No, and please add the city manager to that as well, who on himself.
It was a full city team. I mean, the Office of Environment, Emergency Service, the management, and all of that stuff, OEM, and I think it was a real city team effort to all of that. So thank you, Vice Mayor.
Great, thank you.
Vice Mayor Chenier, can I just pile on here?
Please do.
So I just want to thank city staff too. We had some issues in District 1, and utilities, storm ready team did a great job. Parks, amazing. Police, fire, everybody really helpful. Proud of, the community outreach team, but also want to thank Regional Transit. I reached out to them for some help in a hurry, and they were very responsive. So I want to thank Henry Lee and those folks. Really feel like it was an all hands on deck weekend, including council members. And I was proud to be a part of the team. So good job, City of Sacramento.
Thank you, Pro Tem. Anybody else?
Just want to kind of add on the all hands on deck. And it appears that no matter what the situation is, all the departments within the City of Sacramento are ready to be on deck and ready to serve the community. And I see it more and more in everything that we do. Whether it's our events at the park, whether it's the recent storms, in everything we do, our departments are standing up and doing everything we need in order for us to be a first-class city. And I just want to thank each and every one of them, and especially our city manager, who's leading all those teams.
Councilmember Vang.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. I too also just want to echo my colleagues and thank city staff, but really also want to take this opportunity, because I'm on the water committee, to talk about really the importance of making sure that we have a strong infrastructure when we have storm and rains like this. We do have an aging and deteriorating stormwater system, and I know that we are exploring a potential local funding measure. And so definitely just want to put that on record as well, that, for staff to be able to do their work, we also have to make sure that we have a strong infrastructure and system. And so just wanted to put a plug for that as well, and take this opportunity to mention that, because we are exploring that option as well in terms of infrastructure. And again, just a heartfelt thank you to staff for all the great work that y'all did this weekend. Thank you so much.
Great. Anything else? Mr. City Manager, do you have a report?
I do not, Vice Mayor. I just want to also add our Daniel Bowers, who's our Office of Emergency Services. He's he was like, he was all over the place this weekend, along with the rest of the city staff, our UPC team, folks staffing these storm centers. Really proud of our team and appreciate the support from the council. Thank you.
Great. Well deserved. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on matters not on the agenda?
I have no hands raised to make public comment for matters not on the agenda.
Well, that would mean we're adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.